We typically keep a pretty tight schedule here, so I know people are going to trickle in as we keep going. We're gonna get the party started here to make sure that people are staying on schedule. So here, let me start the clock. 20 minutes sprint training. For those of you who have been here before, you know the formula. If you haven't, 20 minutes. We get in, we get our brain sharp, we get out, we get back to selling. Protein content all packed into 20 minutes. It's not your dad's webinar. It is meant to give you great actionable training items that you can learn something new and fresh today and immediately start implementing. This one's going to be special. For a lot of you who are showing up here, you already know that. Jed, I've been a fan. I've been maybe the president of the Boston chapter of the Jed Mahrle fan club now for a few years. Unique cat. He homeschooled.
Yeah.
Took a quick coffee at a college for a little while and said, yeah, I'm not going to do that either. Jumped right into the workforce right at 18, right, Jed?
I did. Yep. Yeah.
And has been on the front lines of SDR, BDR, cutting edge. If you do not subscribe to Jed's newsletter, you're missing out on gold that he delivers for free to your doorstep. He's like old jolly Saint Nick. You got to get in there and get that free gold that he's dropping in little sacks every week. We already started the clock. Today's session, we're going to talk about Outbound Prospecting 2023. Lot is going on here. Lots changed. Lots still the same. So we're going to dig into it with Jed and get right into his cerebral cortex here and get as much out of him as we possibly can in the remaining 18 minutes. Let's jump right in, Jed. I don't want to lose any time here. We're 6 months into the year.
Yeah.
It's been kind of a crazy year. It's been kind of a crazy few years, but this year it's like new headlines have taken over. When you look at the world of the SDR, BDR on the front lines, what's the headline read to you on the newspaper? After we put Denver winning away, which we could talk about separately, we don't want to look at that. What's the front page of SDR, BDR Times say on the first 6 months of the year?
Yeah, I think it would be hard to not mention AI in that conversation because it seems like everywhere you look, particularly with the SDR role, you hear about AI. And I'm kind of at the point where I'm trying to dig in as much as possible to learn more about it because it doesn't seem like it's going away in terms of the SDR and prospecting role. And I think what we're finding out is that probably almost half of the activities that maybe we spent most of our time on 3-4 years ago can be automated by AI. And that should be a good thing if you are somebody who knows how to be proactive and take action. And so take advantage of that now, learn how to use AI to your ability. There's lots of free tools. I know being an SDR, it's tough, right? Because you can't just go make a $15,000 AI tool purchase, but there's lots of free tools and things you can use to your advantage to free up more time for yourself and not be one of the people that spends most of their time on the activities that can be automated in the long run.
What's your favorite AI hack? So if we're going to leave this call today and just run right out and start using something on the front lines without that $15,000 purchase, what's something, if I'm not using AI at all right now, what is the low-hanging fruit that's available to me?
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is cool. I think I would never advise like writing your entire emails using like a ChatGPT. Regi.ai also has a free part of their platform, and there's a lot of these tools out there. In my opinion, the best way to do that, and there's a couple ways, you can, like, for example, and I can share my resources as well. People reach out to me on LinkedIn, but you can give it a list of prospects and say, like, find research points for me based on these triggers. People that, you know, maybe recently changed jobs, and particularly in Regi as well, but people who recently changed jobs, people, you can set up AI triggers. There's another tool called Clay that is pretty cool for this, where you can say, basically give it this list of prospects and say, like, tell me how many SDRs, or tell me if you sell to HR personas, for example, tell me how many people in HR they have, and like basically ask it to find all the triggers and research and then use that to craft your emails. Or you can say, hey, like, what, you know, I like using it for ICP research as well. So like, I sell to this industry and this buyer, ask an AI tool, what do you know about, you know, this industry, or what are their top problems, things of that nature, to kind of get a better understanding of your ICP and their problems and priorities, things of that nature.
Okay. I'm much more of a sales generalist than a specialist. So
Sure.
I have a lot of people who talk to me about prospecting. They say, hey, Matt, is it volume or is it personalization? I'm like, well, you really need both. You need
Yeah.
enough at-bats out there, but you don't want to spam. You got to customize it. And then the follow-on question is how? And my answer is, let's ask Jed. So
Yeah.
what
It always
do
depends,
you
right?
recommend for maintaining a healthy volume, but not spamming, giving enough customization, personalization, relevance? Relevance seems to be the phrase of the day. How do you build enough of that in at scale?
Yeah, I mean, and it totally depends, right? And so I want to just be upfront by saying, obviously, if you're SDR number one at a company that has unlimited green territory, you have a lot more room to test and just, do more high volume with relevance. Whereas if you're an SDR at, let's say, a company like Gong or something, for example, where you only have a select number of accounts you can go after, it's probably in your best priority to research more. But my biggest thing is whenever you're personalizing emails, which I think you should do, right? You should do some sort of relevance, not the whole email, typically just the first preview line, which is the one that's being seen. Your value prop is typically the same, and then your call to action is typically the same. So it's typically that first intro line or icebreaker, whatever you want to call it. I call it like the context line, which is why I'm reaching out. If you go look at like your last 2 months and look at all the emails you personalized, you'll find a lot of patterns. You'll find that you personalize around a lot of the same exact things. Unless you found somebody who like went to the exact same college as you and you want to call that out, whatever. A lot of it is pretty similar, right? So what you should do is you should create standard templates for all those different patterns you find. So for example, maybe you personalize because they use a certain tech stack. Just create a template so you don't have to go rewrite that email every time. And most sales engagement tools will allow you to just pop that snippet in. And so that's the faster way to write relevant emails, is just finding the patterns based on what you've already personalized before, popping them in so you can send them out in less than a minute. And then you're not really sacrificing the time, but you're still being relevant.
Okay. Video has propped up. It's really started to hit the market, I'd say 5 or 6 years ago at scale, and it's still there.
Yep.
And a number of providers out there. How do you look at video as part of the outbound and the prospecting, that first connect prospect? Use it, don't use it, test it. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like video. To be honest, I was never a big like personalized video person. I actually have 2 of my SDRs in this call, Lena and Dasanka, who kill it with video. And the strategy that they use is actually basically reaching out saying, instead of your call to action being, would you be open to learning more? Do you want to take a meeting? That's a pretty high friction ask. And Matt, I'm sure in your experience as a sales leader and whatever persona you sell to, the high level people have a lot going on their plate, right? So accepting a 30-minute meeting, you don't really want to do that unless it's super top of mind or an active project that you're looking into.
Right.
So the more lower friction ask to still get some traction with the prospect is saying, hey, do you mind if I send over a quick 1-minute video to provide more information? And if you find it, like me as somebody who gets prospected to as well, I see a lot of different interesting softwares out there. I don't always want to take a 30-minute video, but if it sounds even slightly interesting, sure, I'll look at more information. I'll look at a video. And so that's the strategy we've been using, is we'll say, hey, if this sounds interesting, can I send a 1-minute video? And the video is just a canned video. We send it to everybody. It's what we did is we took a snippet. So like go into your demos. If you're an SDR, for example, what is that aha moment that prospects have when they're on a demo and they're like, wow, that's awesome. Capture that in a 1-minute video, 15 seconds, setting up the problem of what you solve, 30 seconds showing them that aha moment of how your product solves that problem. And then the last 15 seconds kind of as a call to action. If you're open to learning more, we can jump on a call. If not, let me know when it makes sense to reach back out. And so we get a lot more responses because people want to look at a video rather than taking a 30-minute video. And then you just have to take that next step of calling, email, following up to actually land the meeting. But that's probably the number one way that we use video, both in LinkedIn and email.
I love that. And it's probably the most common faux pas I see in most outreach campaigns that I get into, where they think the ask is small when it's for a 5-minute call, a 10-minute call. A call is a huge ask, right?
Yeah.
And you got to really eat the elephant in pieces and take that smallest little win first in your call to action. What are some of the other areas that you've seen when you look inside outreach programs, specifically outbound prospecting, of, oh God, I'm seeing this again, another symptom of a flawed process besides the call to action?
Yeah, I mean, the call to action is big, not like properly distilling the problem. And so I like to open all of my emails with some sort of problem statement. Do you ever run into this? And I think the biggest issue that people, in terms of what I see in my inbox and what I see with other people, is like not properly understanding their buyer. And that might sound generic, but I guess what I mean by that is you have to get really crystal clear with understanding what are the exact titles that I reach out to, and then very clearly distill what are their top 1 to 3 problems that you solve for them in their words. So what's going to happen is if you're an SDR and you join a new company, you know, you hear all the lingo of what your product does and how it solves it, but that's not really how your prospects or your customers describe those problems. And so that's one of the biggest issues, is not properly describing the problem you solve in the prospect's language. And I think if you understand that, the rest of your outreach becomes much better. I mean, there's a lot of other small things too. Not having follow-up emails that provide some sort of value, right? So a lot of it is just one email and then a bunch of mindless bump emails, which I like bump emails, but adding something to the conversation. So like, for example, providing a third-party resource. I'll use an example for Mailshake. We solve problems related to email deliverability. And so I'll send that first email. Maybe I'll send a bump that's just like, any thoughts on this? I still like it. But then my next email might be like, hey, if email deliverability is a problem, here's a great article that HubSpot created with spam words you can remove from your email copy. And I'm providing a resource of a company that's not our own, because nobody wants to look at your resources because they know you have an ulterior motive. But if I send them to HubSpot, somebody that they trust, and it's a resource that they find helpful, when I follow up again, they might take me more seriously. So those are a couple things you can do, but those are probably the 2 biggest ones that come to mind.
Okay. See, now for me, it's reassuring to hear that. If you're hearing this for the first time, it shouldn't be. If you followed Jed or subscribe to his newsletter, it wouldn't have been the first time. You would have seen that message come up already. This is the gold that he shares. So you got to get in there and get that. What is the mainstay stuff? If you could point to any one thing that it's the same today as it was 18 months ago, as it was 3 years ago, completely unchanged. Don't worry about this AI stuff. Don't worry about any of these other changes in the market. This one thing is completely unchanged as it has been. What is it?
I mean, it's still cold calling. Like, it's funny because I rate so much content around cold email and LinkedIn stuff, because I think honestly, cold calling is much simpler and there's not as much content to create around that, but it's just the truth. Like, you know, if you're still getting like a 5% connect rate at least, and you know, if you make 100 calls, you're going to have 5 conversations, and you should be able to, if you're calling the right people, convert 1 in 5 people. And so that's what I like about cold calling, is it's much more predictable. If I can make 100 calls, I know I can have 5 conversations. If I can have 5 conversations, I know I can book 1 demo. I don't think that's ever going to change. People are still picking up the phone. There's a lot of noise that you might see on LinkedIn, and it's not as complicated, right? Like, you have to understand your opener, know your pitch, and then understand how to ask good open-ended questions and go for the meeting. But I don't think cold calling is going anywhere. I still think it's a super important part of the process. My whole SDR team is still cold calling and booking meetings on the phone. I think email is just a bit more complicated, and so there's more nuances to it, which is why people tend to talk about it more. But I still think cold calling is the best channel.
I saw a poll on LinkedIn a few weeks ago asking sales leaders, how do they open a cadence? Call, email, or in-mail on LinkedIn. And call and email were the clear winners, but it was almost a jump ball.
Yeah.
What do you favor? What does your cadence look like? You leading with call, or because of your product, you kind of have to lead with email?
That's a good point. We actually don't lead with any of them. We lead with LinkedIn. And so we lead with a LinkedIn message where it's either just a blank connect, because in our industry, like selling to salespeople, people just tend to accept connection requests. Sometimes we'll throw a message in there like, hey, sending an email, shortly wanted to put a face to the name or something else. And then immediately after that, and this is important that I think doesn't happen to me a lot, but it's super impactful when we do it when we're prospecting, is triple tapping, right? So as soon as that LinkedIn message goes out, there's an email that goes out right away, and there's a call that's queued up right after that. And so if you're doing your prospecting activities in bunches, it makes it a lot easier to get your prospects' attention. But yeah, we lead with LinkedIn, then we send an email. And the goal of that is for when we call, it's a bit warmer. And we also focus on the warmest lead. And this isn't uncommon, right? But we're not just cold calling random leads. We're cold calling the people that are clicking, because we're sending a lot of resources, right? So we want to follow up on that. We're calling the people that are opening and clicking on our emails, our LinkedIn messages the most. And so the calling gets more heavy once we've sent a good amount of emails and LinkedIn messages.
What's the first call, the message that somebody gives when they get that first pickup? So there's already that history on LinkedIn. There's the history in the inbox. What's the open for an outbound first connect?
Yeah. And people might roast me for this because I've heard different things, but this has just been the call opener that I've always worked, and it works well for me. It's just, hey, Matt, this is Jed over at Mailshake. If I have any sort of personalization or trigger that I've done. It might be like, hey, I saw you just joined triple session, for example, sent over an email, does a name ring a bell? Or, hey, I see you're hiring SDRs. I sent an email about that. Does a name ring a bell? So I want to mention whatever that kind of buying trigger is that I found right in that intro to kind of pique their curiosity and get them to think, oh, what was that email about? And get them to say, no, I haven't seen the email. Say, and then from there, I'm saying, great, mind if I just take 30 seconds to quickly recap it? You can let me know if it's worth the conversation. As long as your tone is slow and you sound trustworthy, like 75% of the time, they're going to let you give your pitch and kind of tell what it was about. And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I saw your email. And then great, the work is off of you as an SDR. You can say, oh, awesome. What did you think?
Mm-hmm.
And they might say like, oh, I only got a chance to take a look at it. And then you say, great, let me fill you in. But I always like leading with, did you see that email? Some people don't like it, but it works really well for me.
Isn't that really the magical difference between a call and something in text, the tone?
Yeah.
Because what you just said, and you even called it out, a lot of people would say, oh God, you can't say that. You can't lead with that. Don't reference the email, deliver value right away. Don't talk about yourself. You did it and it worked for you. Isn't it all tone really on the call? I mean, there's some messaging tips, but it's how you deliver the message, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the issue too, because I remember being an SDR where I would scroll LinkedIn or listen to a podcast, read a book, and everyone's like, oh, this is how you have to open your calls. This is how you pitch. And so every month I would change up my pitch. I would change up my opener. I would try the upfront contract opener, 30 seconds, whatever. I would try getting right into my pitch. And the problem with that is when you're not comfortable and you don't know something like the back of your hand, your tone sounds funny. You sound like you're reading a script. You sound more nervous. Whereas in my opinion, just pick with whatever one sounds the most comfortable to you and just stick with it. No matter how many LinkedIn posts you see saying it's not the right way to do it, don't change it. Just stick with it so that you can basically say it in your sleep. It sounds so comfortable. And then because the tone, like you said, Matt, is so much more important. And if you just stick to one thing, your tone will sound as good as it possibly can, and you'll get more conversations.
Okay. So help us out with the ideal stack. Obviously Mailshake's in there, but aside from that, what does a world-class stack look like for Outbound?
Yeah, I may not be the best person to answer this question because in every role I've been in, we haven't had like a massive stack. You know what I mean? But what I will say is Sales Navigator gives you, like, my opinion is Sales Navigator is like the gold standard for any sort of sales tech stack. It gives you, if you know how to use it well, it gives you 90% of what a lot of these sales tools specialize in. So there's a lot of tools that specialize in one specific thing. Like there's a really cool tool called User Gems, for example, that will help you track when somebody that is a customer leaves and goes to a new company. And that's awesome, right? It's an expensive tool, but it's well worth it. The ROI is there. You can do that manually in Sales Navigator. There's intents in Sales Navigator. It's not as great as the other intent tools out there. Those are obviously phenomenal tools. But what I'm trying to say is that you can get away with a lot of things if you just have Sales Navigator. Obviously, you need some sort of sales engagement tool. I would highly recommend Mailshake because we have email deliverability built in with a dialer. I'm not too dependent on any specific data tool, but I do recommend having several because I think what we've seen now is that a lot of different data tools specialize in different things, and it's good to have at least two so that you have overlap if you're missing some. And a lot of emails are bad now. The way people are changing jobs, getting laid off. So you need to have that overlap and have multiple email sources. Outside of that, man, I mean, there's other tools I can mention, but I think that's really all you need. And people, I'm not a big fan of a huge tech stack. I think people overcomplicate it. And if you don't know how to master the simple ones, like a sales engagement tool, Sales Navigator, and then your data source, then you probably shouldn't upgrade to new tools until you really got the most out of those.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on intent because I love the concept. I've never been able to get my arms around how to do it at scale and how to keep it light and capture that information and stay right on the cutting edge of how to follow up with someone when you see some of those signals. Do you have any advice there?
It's tough. I mean, there is a tool that's really interesting called Warmly that we're actually about to start testing on as well, where you can literally, like, you basically have an SDR that's assigned to the tool. It sits on your website. Anytime somebody comes to the website, clicks on the pricing page, you can immediately interact with them. It's kind of like a chatbot, but basically you get all of their information. And so you can start sending emails, but that's high intent because they're actually on your webpage. With other intent tools, like my experience has been, it's a good way to select accounts to go after, but I wouldn't, like, I've had in the past when I was an SDR, I'd see intent and I'd say, oh, I saw you guys were, looking on our website or potentially looking into this type of software. Is that true? It never really worked well for me. So if you're looking at, like, you have 1,000 accounts to go after and 100 of them have intent, focus on those ones first. And that's kind of the way I would use it. I don't have a ton of good advice there, but yeah, I haven't been able to figure out the intent side of things too much either.
Okay, last question here before we wrap it up. We're almost at the 20-minute mark. We got tons of people listening on the call. It's going to be on demand later. If they're listening to this and they're like, God, I'm doing everything wrong. I'm not hearing any of this. I got to fix a bunch of broken systems, leaking oil all over the place. You've built SDR teams a couple times now, and I know you give advisory to some of the most leading companies that are in the market doing this stuff. If somebody had to just tear it down and start from scratch, what would you recommend is task one, job one? What should they look to first as the first thing that they need to really focus their attention on?
Yeah, better understanding who their ICP is. So what are the specific criteria for the accounts they want to go after, and the specific criteria of the contacts they want to go after, and what problems you solve for them. And so that comes through actually interviewing customers of yours, reading, if you're a software company, reading through your G2 crowd reviews, specifically reaching out to people who are in your market and interviewing them, talking to people internally at the company. But I think if you don't have that piece figured out, then the messaging you write, the scripts you do, and everything else is it's like the foundation of everything else you do. So I would say that's number one. And you can find this by looking at your customers, looking at your inbound data, trying to find really specific things like, oh, they all seem to be based in this location, or the people that have come inbound are always people that are new to the company, or, they've always been at the company for 5 years, or all the companies that we work with, they were founded in the last 5 years. So find these patterns and then reverse that and go outbound towards those specific companies.
Got it. Love it. Amazing. That's it. Look at that, 21 minutes. We got one minute from Jeb right there. That one's on the house. It's free, everybody. If you do not subscribe to Jed's mail list, get in there, go to his LinkedIn. You could access it right through there. Follow the man. He drops all sorts of crazy knowledge on LinkedIn and in his newsletter all the time. Jed, deeply appreciated, man. This was great. 20 minutes of power-packed protein here that we could take out. Tons of learnings that I've got from this. We're going to hang around here for a few more minutes to the bottom of the hour. If anyone has any questions, now's your time. You're talking to the Oracle here. So bring it, pop some questions in the chat. We'll open them up. We'll take them on demand in order that they come. While we're waiting for that to queue up next week, we're going to keep the prospecting going, keep the theme alive. There's the link to next week's 20-minute Tuesday sprint. We're going to be talking about video prospecting. So tried to ask Jed here a little bit. He told us that he's experimenting with it. He sees the value. We're going to have a CEO of Better Spark on here that she is going to help us out and make some sense of the world here, letting us know how SendSpark is changing the game and her point on email and video prospecting. You want to talk about basketball now? We're waiting for some questions. Still too painful? No?
No, I didn't sleep well. It's all good. Nuggets were we knew.
So, while we're waiting for some questions here, how does a guy, I get the rebounds and points and the rebounds and assists. How do you do the rebounds and assists and points, especially assists and points, leading both? How do you dish the ball, number one, and score, number one? How does that happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they run the whole offense through him, so I guess he gets to touch the ball a lot. But yeah, the dude is crazy.
Yeah.
I'll drop a resource as well. If it's cool with you, Matt.
Get in here.
It's like a free, basically I just created this with it's like a free playbook basically on pretty much everything I've learned about building SDR teams, and kind of exactly what we're talking about right now, Matt, which is just how to understand your ICP, how to build out messaging, video prospecting, all that stuff. I kind of just put it into one doc. Just a bunch of stuff there to kind of dive in deeper to some of the stuff we talked about today.
You get the link to your Sell Better video series too, if that's handy. I went through that a few weeks ago and loved it.
Yeah.
Really great content, fast, went to the heart of it. It was amazing.
Oh yeah, I'll drop it right there.
Look at that. Get in that stuff, jump in, download it, check it out if you haven't. It's amazing content. You're going to learn a lot. Looks like we have a pretty quiet audience here today. So why don't we give some time back here to everyone if no questions. If you do have questions, there is the Triple Session Slack group. Jump in there. I will chase Jed down and find out the answer to the question if you have it for him, if you have it for me. DM me or ask me in the Q&A there. Jed, again, deeply appreciated, man. This was fantastic. Learned a
Yeah.
lot.
Thanks, Matt. Always good to see you.
All right,
Thanks
buddy.
for listening.
Have a good one.
Yep.